If you are in a place where it is comfortable for you to do so, and it is appropriate for you to do so, go ahead and close your eyes and begin to relax your body and mind as you take some deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, we see light entering our bodies and minds, and with every exhale, we let go of anything that we do not want. Inhaling light, and exhaling, releasing all tension. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain, in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, lighting us and the grove up with a sacred golden light. We recognize that this is the light of perfect trust and perfect love. This light burns away everything that is unlike itself, so that we are left with only perfect love and perfect trust. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, this Creator reveals themselves to be a god and goddess, a mother and father. Into this space, we also invite the presence of our teachers, our angels, and guides. We dedicate this time that we spend together to them and to each other. And we ask that we be led as we walk upon our way to become happier, more joyous, more prosperous, more peaceful, and more loving people. Thank you very much. And if it's appropriate out loud, you can say, "Blessed be." Oftentimes in our lives, we find that we get stuck. I'm sure everybody can relate to that. We get stuck in life. Sometimes we get stuck with relationships. We get stuck in money. We get stuck in our health. We get stuck in our spiritual advancement and our spiritual growth. We get stuck trying to be happy and we can't. We get stuck with all kinds of things. And those stuck places sometimes present themselves as something that is impossible for us to move beyond. Sometimes it feels almost as if there's some capricious deity that is causing us punishments or causing us problems. But the reality is that when we have stuck places in our lives, there is always a way to unstick ourselves. There's actually a force that has all power to heal and to correct. It knows precisely what's wrong and how to heal it. And we can recognize this force in nature. Nature always tends toward healing. Nature always tends toward balance, towards correction. Just if you cut your finger, immediately that blood starts to coagulate. Immediately that starts to scar over. So no matter what, there is a healing force just in any part of the most mundane aspects of nature that is always at work. And this is true for every aspect of life. Now, just like when you cut your finger and it starts to heal itself, you could keep irritating that finger and put a lot of resistance against the healing force that's coming. We see that in our lives, don't we? Where we are maybe having some sort of a problem and nature starts healing it, but we do everything we can in our ability to sort of thwart the healing process. We can see that in relationships all the time. When the healing force comes to start healing us to have a point of connection with somebody where maybe there was a problem, where we find some forgiveness, that it's very, very common for us to say, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to hate this person. And we aggravate the wound. We just decide to aggravate the wound. And you know what? We have all freedom to do that. You are always free. A lot of times people will go out of their way to aggravate the healing process, to really thwart the healing process. And then when healing doesn't happen or when things get worse, they are very quick to say, nothing ever works for me. And that's what is kind of the crux of a lot of problems that we have in life and the reasons why sometimes we feel like we can't get unstuck is we thwart the healing process and then we dissociate from what we've done And we project that out into the world and say, look what they're doing to me, or look what the universe is doing to me. Look what the world is doing to me. Look what those people are doing to me. That's our own genius mind that we are using against ourselves. Our own genius mind used against ourselves. We are so smart. We are so powerful. We are brilliant souls. And when we decide to turn that power against ourselves, it can seem very bad and very dark. But we feel so bad about it. We feel so guilty about it. Whatever our reasons are, we remove ourselves from all culpability, from all responsibility. And because we are great projection machines, we put all of the responsibility on everything outside of us, everything other than what is responsible for the stuck place. Now, it doesn't matter how you got there. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter about blame or fault or any of that, how you get into a stuck place. What matters is how we respond to it. And if we respond to some stuck place by digging our heels in and thwarting the healing response, the universe has to wait for us. The universe has to wait for us because we have decided to delay our healing. But that does not negate the fact that there is a force of healing that is active even now, even at that moment, even at that place where it seems like nothing is working for us. In the realms of consciousness, we have complete freedom. We have free will. We can choose to think any thought we decide if we want to think. We can choose any thought we desire to think, and thus experience anything that we decide we want to experience. If you were to close your eyes, you have the freedom to make up a beautiful fantasy inside your mind. You have the freedom to dream up a horrible experience in your mind, a horrible nightmare in your mind. You have the freedom to relax your body at will. You have the freedom to tense up your body at will. You have the freedom to seethe in anger at somebody. You have the freedom to forgive somebody. All of those are your choices. Nobody can force you to think any thought that you don't want to think. It's impossible. Even if they brainwash you, because on some level, when you're brainwashed, you're still giving permission. You're still giving permission to think a particular thought. So remind yourself how much freedom you have and how much choice you have at any given instant. Now, if you sit and you desire something with all your heart, the tendency is for the creative powers of your being to begin to move, to bring that into existence, at least on some level. At least on some level. If you think about the idea that mythical creatures that never really actually got manifest in physical form still exist in the astral, you can still think of them. You can still imagine them. You can still write fantasy stories about them, right? So the same thing is true with you. Whether or not something actually physically manifests in the world, you can still think about it in your life. It's still alive for you on some level. And now if what you're desiring, whether it's be something that is on its way to manifesting or something that you're just toying with still in the astral, if it's out of harmony with the divine will, you automatically will experience problems in your life. Because the divine will is your will. And it's very important that we differentiate between will with a small w and will with a capital W. Your true will is the will that your soul has, and your soul came into life, into this incarnation, with very lofty goals, very specific goals. Now, allowing you to have an ego, your soul then is giving a lot of trust to you, a lot of trust that you are going to continue to make the right choices. And oftentimes we don't do that. Oftentimes we have been entrusted with a life, with an incarnation, and we haven't been very trustworthy with it. So what you can do is you can look and see if there are places that you're out of harmony with in your life. If you contextualize it as you having made choices that were out of alignment with your true will, very often, if not always, you can start to bring your life back into the magnetic field of your true will so that things start to manifest in the way that they were intended when you came into this incarnation. See, when your little individual ego says, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, and your soul brought you into life to do something very different, you can choose to do those things, but they're never going to bring you happiness or joy because you are at odds with your will. You're at odds with your true will. Now, many times, like when we do the witch's primer, we have to strengthen our will, strengthen our magical will. We have to do exercises that makes our will very strong and impenetrable, so that we're, no matter pretty much what we will to do, we can see ourselves accomplishing it. But if we build that will up and then use that magical will to thwart the will of our soul, then we have more power to make ourselves miserable. We have even more power to make ourselves unhappy. Because you cannot be happy unless you are engaged in your will, your soul's will, your spiritual will, your true will, which is the will of the entire universe. They are one and the same. Because as a soul, you are an extension of infinite intelligence. You are a direct extension of that light of truth, just like a sunbeam is a direct extension of the sun itself. Very, very similar kind of experience. Just like a sunbeam can't really separate itself from the sun and go off and be a sunbeam all by itself, you can't ultimately separate yourself from your true will. But your mind is powerful, and you can think you can. And you can waste a lot of time, and you can waste a lot of incarnation dabbling in areas of life which have absolutely nothing to do with why you came here. And during that times that you are dabbling, you can have anything but true happiness. You can have anything but true joy, because true joy only comes from doing your will. Now, if you're doing other things, you can have experiences that masquerade as joy. You can have sexual lusts, you can have food lusts, you can have all kinds of interesting experiences with the sense organs of your body, none of which are bad, none of which are wrong or evil, but they're also not the same thing as true joy necessarily. The only way that you can experience true joy is by doing your will. That's the only way. And until you allow yourself to remember your true will, you're basically giving your ego free rein to do whatever it wants. So it's important to realize that you were not created some time in the past. You were not created at some point in the past and then left to your own devices. That's a very skewed perception of creation. Creation doesn't exist in the past. Creation exists in eternity. And the closest thing to eternity in this world is this moment. Therefore, you are being created now. You are being created now. And you are also part of the line of creation, which means that you are creating now. Now, if you're creating according to your will, then you have that unbroken line from will to will to will, creation to creation to creation. And every single thing that you create is a co-creation with your soul. And your soul is a co-creation with your creator. And all is well. But as soon as you start thinking in terms of, yeah, I want to do things differently. I want my way. I don't want my soul's will. I don't want God's will. I don't want Goddess's will. I want to do things different. I want to know what it's like to be all by myself, a king or queen in my own universe without any attachment to anything but myself. That's the kind of contemplation that's caused the problems in our world. That's, in fact, the kind of contemplation that gave rise to the world that we exist in now, rather than the world that was created for us. You hear all those creation myths, such as the Garden of Eden. Those are symbols of the difference between the world that you actually live in as a soul versus the world of perception that you have created for yourself based on an erroneous idea that you could be all alone in the universe, like that sunbeam, all alone, separate from the sun. So it's very helpful to remind yourself that you were not created in the past, nor were you left all alone. You are being created at every instant. Every moment of time and point of space, you are being created. And therefore, you are actually constantly safe. You are always safe. You are always prosperous. You are always powerful. And you always have the power. You always have the power to get unstuck at any point that you feel like you're stuck. Because you're not doing the unsticking. You're deciding that you'd rather not be stuck, and you're allowing that will to come in and rearrange things for you so that now you're conforming to why you came here to begin with. You're not any longer subjugating your soul's will by saying, no, I want to do my thing. I want to do it my way. I want to make stuff up that doesn't even exist. I want to have something else than truth. And as soon as you stop playing those games with yourself and you start saying, yeah, well, maybe there is a will that's higher than what I understand. Maybe I am a powerful soul. Maybe I am a god or a goddess in my own right. Maybe there is a higher will that I'm a part of, which I've forgotten because I've decided that I'm this little insignificant less than being that's out all by itself in the universe, completely forgotten. Maybe that's true. And if that's true, maybe I can just remember that I'm already connected to infinite power, that I'm already connected to infinite love, that I'm already connected to infinite intelligence. So that little insanity that we start off with this whole idea of I'm separate and alone all by myself, I was created in the past and then left by myself to figure it out. Once we recognize that that little insane idea is responsible for all of our problems, we can start rethinking that insane idea. But here's the rub. We're so powerful. And I keep telling you this because a lot of times we forget this. You're so powerful that when you set up a thought form, it's really difficult to dismantle it because you're so good at it. So that main thought form of your ego, that you're separate and insignificant and little and you're left out all by yourself, and that you were created in the past and now you got to figure it out all by yourself, that insane idea, that can't be dismantled by you alone. Not as an ego. Your soul itself has to come in and reestablish the truth for you. And that can only happen with your permission. And the way that we do that depends on you. Now, for me, I work with the goddess. But if that doesn't work for you, you can work with the Holy Spirit. You could work with God. You could work with infinite spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's not picky. It doesn't matter. The idea that spirit cares what you call it is kind of silly. So when you call on this higher power, what I call the goddess, you start to develop a relationship with her. You start to develop a relationship with this spirit. Because what you want to do is you want to start asking, what does it really look like versus what I think it looks like? I feel so stuck in this place. I want to know what it looks like from your point of view. You see how that speeds things up? Rather than trying to create something that you don't understand, you say, all I know is that I'm stuck. All I know is that I'm not happy. And I know that on some level, I'm not on my right path. Spirit, can you show me your point of view instead? Can you show me how it is from your world, in your world, versus this nightmare that I'm experiencing right now? And then you learn how to be receptive. You learn how to be receptive and allow yourself to choose new thoughts based on what you're experiencing. See, the problem is we want it our way. And we keep thinking, well, if I try hard enough my way, eventually I'll be happy. But that never happens, does it? You're never happy when you try it your way. Because your way, the way you think you are, the way we think we are, this little ego with the small w will, that will is never capable of bringing us happy because it doesn't understand why we're here. It doesn't understand what our soul's journey is. It doesn't understand what our function is. So all it's going to do is keep pointing to different pockets of the nightmare, trying to help you to get some solace. But you're never going to get it. Never, ever, ever. You got to ask outside the thought system. You've got to invoke outside of the thought system. It's like that thread, the Ariadne's thread in the labyrinth. Show me a different way of seeing this. Show me a different world than what I'm experiencing. So that's how you unstick yourself, is by not unsticking yourself. You get unstuck by recognizing my being stuck is because of how I'm thinking. I want to be shown how to think in a way that I don't understand, that's completely outside of this. I want to be shown something different. I want to be shown something new. And so very often what you have to learn how to do is look at your life and say, I don't know what any of it means. If it's true for this place that I'm stuck, it's probably true for everything. It's probably true that everything I ever was taught was wrong. It's probably true that this entire matrix of what I'm calling the real world is nothing, is not real. And I want to see the real world instead of this. I want to be unstuck not only in this certain circumstance, but I want to be unstuck, period. I want my will. I want my true will. I want my soul's will. And I'm going to invoke and invoke and invoke and allow myself to get out of the way. To get out of the way. Allow my ego to get out of the way. And I'm willing for a moment to be the follower rather than the leader. I remember the first time that I really understood that. And I said, oh, I can follow instead of lead. At first, my first response was, forget that. I'm not a follower. I'm a leader. It was very insulting to me to think, why would I want to follow? I know what I'm doing. I know what I want. But I got so tired. I got so basically sick and tired of living a life where nothing ever worked for me that finally I decided that I would give that a try. What happens if I follow instead of lead? I don't think at that moment I'd ever felt what relaxation felt like and peace felt like. I don't think I'd ever felt that before. When I really got, I can just relax and step back, sit back, and let something else take over. Let something else be the leader. All I have to do is follow what's in front of me to do. And I can take it one little step at a time and be guided and led every little way. I'll just do what's right in front of me to do. I'm not going to think about anything big, no big picture, none of that for a minute. I'm just going to just step back. I'm going to let some higher power be the leader. And oh my gosh, I don't think I ever felt so good. And I remember it like it was yesterday, how peaceful that felt, how much of a burden was lifted from me. And not only that, but the problems that had prompted such a thing started just dissolving, started just to take care of themselves as if they'd never even happened. So I knew I was onto something when I got that. A lot of times when people start to study witchcraft and they start to build their magical will, they get the idea that they have to know everything. They have to know what's going to make them happy. They have to know what they want. They have to have every little detail planned out. And there are exercises that we do for that. And there is a good reason for that sometimes. But ultimately, our plans are oftentimes not what we want. Oftentimes, our plans are the problem, not the solution. So if you're really stuck, if you're really having problems, thinking that you know what you want is probably not the best idea. Because if you knew what was going to make you happy, you'd probably already be happy. Rather, the best assistance comes from you saying, I don't know what's going to make me happy. I don't know why I'm stuck. I don't know what any of it means. I really don't. I'm baffled. But I'm willing to be shown. And I'm willing for the goddess to enter into this situation and lead me. And I'm going to follow. I'm just going to follow one step at a time as she leads me out of the labyrinth into my true will, reminding me why I'm here, why I came here, what I'm here to do, educating me every step of the way. And what it looks like to other people is that you're this massive leader, that you have it all figured out. Little do they know you know nothing. Little do they know that you are following one step at a time. Because a leader in this world is a follower in the invisible world. And learning how to follow is the only way out of any problem. So I invite you to maybe take the next week and look at some areas in your life where you feel stuck and say, I must be coming up with my own solutions here that aren't working so well. What happens if I come at it from a completely different angle and I say, I don't know. I don't know what this means. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know how I got here. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what any of it's for. I don't know why. I'm never going to understand it because it's all insanity. It's all based on something insane. And instead, I'm going to call on something sane. I'm going to call upon whatever you call it. I'm going to call on infinite spirit. I'm going to call upon the Great Mother. I'm going to call upon Holy Spirit. I'm going to call upon God. I'm going to call upon some deity, whatever you want to call on that you consider to be the supreme intelligence that knows everything. And I'm going to ask to be shown. And I'm going to discipline myself not to take the lead. I'm going to allow myself to be created in this moment. And I'm going to allow myself to be a follower and enjoy the fact that as I follow, I am healed. As I follow, my whole life is healed. As I follow, I remember. As I follow, I'm educated and I'm learning. And I'm becoming wise and happy, and everything is clearing up in amazing ways. Thank you for spending a little time with me today. I really appreciate you. And until next time, blessed be.